As personal brands, we don't always realize how often we keep ourselves small. We try to squeeze ourselves into these tiny boxes because they used to fit. A specific way of doing things used to work well for me, so I have to keep doing that. But business is human and humans grow. This year, I had more space than ever in my business, and I realized that something had to give in order to build the next version. Something was just off. And honestly, back in January, I didn't even know if I wanted to keep doing this anymore. My business had evolved, I had evolved, and I realized that my messaging was still speaking to that old version of me, not the person that I'd become. This person that I was still working on growing into. And when you grow as a personal brand, your message has to grow with you. Otherwise, it'll just feel like you're performing a role that doesn't fit you anymore. It's like now you are overqualified for this performance and your messaging has to keep up. So if you find yourself at this point, it's not that you need a new strategy. Often it is just that you need a new story, one that fits where you and your business are now. If you're new here, hey, I'm Jill Wise. I offer marketing direction and I create content for founders and freelancers that want to grow their businesses online. A lot of the work that I do these days is integrated with AI, but without losing that human touch. And that's why I think that messaging is so important to get right. If you don't have this foundation, then everything else you do in terms of business growth just isn't going to work as well. So how do you know when your messaging is off? How do you know that it's time for a change? And what do you do to actually create that change? Messaging is absolutely a marketing task, but it's not just that. In my world, messaging is also a self-awareness task. When done well, it requires you to look at who you are, who you're becoming, what you value, what you're willing to tolerate, what you don't stand for, and what you truly want to be known for. How do you want people to feel when they connect with you? I've been trying to nail down this connection that I've felt and so many of my clients over the past couple of years have felt too. Historically, clients will work with me because they want to clarify their message, they want to build a website or a funnel, maybe they need some marketing direction, some plans that they can follow through on. We may work together to optimize their offers so that they sell better, or I'll consult on their content strategy in order to better fill the top of their pipeline. I cover lead journeys, delivery systems, automations, AI integrations, all of those things. But there's something else. All of this stuff is the business stuff, the things that a marketing or a sales team would be involved in. But because so many of my clients are personal brands or small teams where the founder is very much involved in the business and still the face of the business, honestly, there's these other conversations that come up. Things like their values and personal life experiences that they're navigating and how that's impacting their business. We talk about things like their personal capacity, their personal habits for self-care, and how they can use these to actually create more energy to show up better in their business, even on the days that they feel like they're totally tapped out. And we talk about how to juggle both business growth and a full life without sacrificing your drive for your goals and your self-compassion. So how do I put this into a box? So to summarize, I had grown and I knew this, but my messaging was still talking about this old version of me, and the things that I was going after were just things that I had outgrown. I think this is why sometimes messaging work can just feel like so uncomfortable, because it's not about just finding better words this time. It's also accepting that the person who wrote your last website, the person who is represented all over your social pages, is not who you are now. And that's a big deal. Also, we feel like we're supposed to be professional and we have this vision of what that looks like. But I say business is human and you are a complex human being. So no wonder you struggle to synthesize everything that makes you so you into a single message. I also think that professionalism comes from your integrity, your follow through, your results, and how you treat people, not because you wore a blazer and you have an academic sounding voice on your website. When someone asks you to unpack the stories that shaped you and then turn that into something relevant for buyers, that can hit deep. I've learned that it's normal to feel resistance, it's normal to feel emotional, and it is very common to have a personal identity shift as a personal brand or a founder at the same time as requiring a messaging shift for your business. It's not a red flag or a sign that something's wrong. I think it's actually proof that you're doing something right, because then we know there's integrity in both. So let's get into the signs that it is time to refresh your messaging. We've danced around the first one quite a lot, and that's just that things feel really off for you. You're struggling to show up online, to sell your offers, and you're not sure if you want to do your business anymore. And maybe you're having those feelings of burning it all down, but I promise you, you don't need to. Most of the time, where you feel off, it's probably just some misalignment in what it is that you're doing and how you are conveying that value to others through your messaging. The second sign is that you have grown personally and you feel like you have outgrown your work, but then you don't really know how to change things. So maybe you're feeling kind of stuck in the offers that you have and what people know you for. This could look like a freelance content writer getting stuck with gigs that feel too easy for them, or they start to resent because they feel like they're not being paid enough. Maybe they want to do something that's more directly tied to revenue. Maybe they don't want to write blogs anymore, but they'd rather do things like control the whole SEO strategy for the blog. Or maybe it looks like you're a website designer and you have grown so much that you feel comfortable consulting on all areas of the marketing strategy because you've become so embedded in all of your clients' businesses. Over the years, some clients have told me that my intake process feels more like therapy than marketing work. And not to say that it is, but the point that I want to make is that it is personal. It is so personal. And it's normal if you're feeling some type of way about how your business is being presented in the world. I always say that what happens in my Zoom room stays in my Zoom room because it can just be so emotional when you're trying to take all of these different little experiences throughout your life and how they shaped you and how that inspired you to become an entrepreneur, to start your business, and how you're going to turn that into a coherent story that you can share with the world that feels deep enough. Another sign is that you are doing more sophisticated work behind the scenes than you're talking about publicly. I have plenty of personal experience with this. So for the longest time, I downplayed what I was doing and I said, oh, I'm just a copywriter, when all of my clients for years were telling me that they relied on me for more than just copy. And I was doing the work of a strategist, of a marketer, all of these broader roles, but what I was selling was copywriting packages. Another sign that your messaging is ready to shift is that you feel stuck with some generic positioning and you don't really know how to explain what makes you different. So you know you're not like those other people, but you don't really have a way of describing it, like what that difference really is. This is a common phenomenon where people all start to sell the same promise, and you know that your way of doing things is slightly different, even though the promises sound similar. So in that sea of sameness, that means that it's time to start selling your method, your approach, the way that you do things instead of just the promise. And that's how you're gonna set yourself apart. Another sign that it's time for your messaging to shift is that your buyer has changed, your audience has changed, and maybe even your rates have changed so that now you have to target a different customer segment. I see this often with freelancers. They go from charging $1,000 to $2,000 per project and then to pitching 5-figure projects to clients, but they struggle with it because those are two very different audience segments. The person who invests in a website that is $2,000 or $3,000 is very different than the person who invests in a website that is $10K and above. Overall, the point here is that if your messaging feels like it's keeping you small, or you feel stuck and you don't really know what to say or how to talk about what it is that you're doing now, it's probably because you've gotten bigger. You have expanded and now you need to create a message that keeps up with that. Now, this is where it's not just your positioning, but your whole identity and how that impacts how you show up in your business. Behavior science shows us that people make decisions based on their identity first and logic second. As much as we like to think that we are logical creatures, we are not. Your buyers do this, you do this, we all do this. I often give the example that one day I decided I was going to become a cute pajama and lip gloss girly instead of someone who wore chapstick and old t-shirts to bed. And then I went out and bought the things to go along with this new identity. Now that's just a fun personal example, but there is more science to support this. BJ Fogg's behavior model says that behavior requires motivation, ability, and a trigger. The identity-based motivation theory says that people act in a way that aligns with who they think they are, who they believe themselves to be. So this is the psychological foundation for why your messaging feels off. It's because you've stopped resonating with it. And then there's narrative psychology, which is that your story shapes your behavior and your future decisions. So as people, our story changes, and as founders, our story needs to change too. When we apply all of this to your brand messaging, then we see that as your personal story changes, your behavior changes, and therefore the message that you're conveying to others needs to change too. I shared a bit at the beginning of this video about my own story, but didn't get back into that really. So for me, it wasn't really that things weren't working, but that I couldn't get behind the words that I was saying anymore. I struggled to make content. I didn't really feel like selling anymore. I just didn't feel like I had my own buy-in to my brand. Even as someone who thought that they got over all of the mindset blocks around sales and showing up, something still felt off. And honestly, I felt a little complacent, like I was just moving through the motions because this is what works for me, rather than showing up with intention and expressing the things that I truly believe. After some personal reflection and doing some digging, I realized that there was just a disconnect between the work that I was doing and what I wanted to be known for in this next phase of my business. And the funny thing is that I've been here before a couple times. And I know that so many other founders and freelancers feel this way at some point, especially as personal brands. As much as we try to disconnect business version of us from our personal selves, it's really hard to do. So no wonder you feel like there's just something off. And I find this to be especially true for the moms that I work with, because you are superheroes who are going through pregnancy and postpartum while still building your businesses. Like, that is a huge identity shift. So no wonder parts of your business feel like they're misaligned right now. Now, I care about this topic specifically because after months of me unraveling everything and trying to find something that was wrong or something that I could fix to create the next version of my business, I realized that the message actually hasn't really changed. My mission hasn't changed. I just needed a new way to go about it and then talk about it. I have relearned so many lessons this year, but it all led back to the beginning and things that I know to be true about myself and my business and how to show up with those front of mind, with that intentionality. I've also had a handful of conversations over just the last couple of weeks about others who are feeling this sense of something needs to shift. And when you look at your business growth strategy, your messaging really is the core of that. If your messaging is off, then nothing is going to work beyond this because you're not going to be able to buy into what it is that you're selling. So like I said at the beginning, maybe it isn't that you need a new strategy. Maybe there's nothing actually wrong with you. You just need to look at the story you're telling yourself and the story that you actually want to share. And if you've grounded your brand and your mission and your vision, then that's not going to go away even when you outgrow your message. It just has to evolve with you. I know that so many founders, freelancers, and personal brands feel like they need to burn everything down at some point in order to create the next version, the next level. Because if it's not working now, then you have to start over, right? But I know from experience personally and with my clients that if you stay true to your mission, like stay true to your mission, that will guide you through the messy middle. And often the changes that you need to make aren't huge. They can be really small tweaks, just tiny shifts for realignment. Because if you started your business in your vision, then you'll be able to get back to that. You will find the through line. So if you made it this far and you feel like you can relate, then you do not have to do this alone. I actually created an AI messaging tool that will help you create your playbook for where your brand is now. Billie is my AI messaging strategist, and I love using her as part of my onboarding for my own clients, but actually anyone can go and try her out on my website whenever you want. Billie is trained on my messaging strategy process, so she's going to ask you all of the deep questions, follow-ups where needed, in order to extract the information that you need to create the next evolution of your messaging strategy going forward. So by the end of your interactive workshop with Billie, she's going to create a messaging playbook for you that you can then use to create content on your own. You can plug it into your AI tools so that it creates better content for you. And you can share it with your team if you do have a team, so that everybody's on the same page of where you are now and where the business is going and how you want to show up in this next evolution of your brand. I love using this tool as part of my processes, and I love seeing what it can create for other people. So I will leave the link for that below. If you have any questions about any of this, please leave them in the comments. I'm happy to help however I can. And at the very least, I want you to know that you're not alone if you feel like something needs to shift. And so many people have made it through this before without having to burn everything down. I'll leave you to it. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me.